My name is Francis Thompson, and at 58 years old, I thought I had built something worth leaving behind. For 30 years, I poured everything into my construction company here in Texas, working sunrise to sunset, turning dreams into buildings that still stand today. My son Derek was supposed to carry that legacy forward, but I never imagined that the person I trusted most would be the one planning my funeral while I was still breathing. That Tuesday morning on Interstate 35 changed everything. Before I tell you what happened when I walked into my own funeral, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button if you have ever trusted someone who let you down, and subscribe, because what I am about to share will stay with you long after this story ends. Now let me take you back to how it all began. I started with nothing but calloused hands and a borrowed toolbox. Growing up in Houston, my family barely scraped by. My father worked at the docks, my mother cleaned houses, and I learned early that if I wanted anything in this life, I would have to build it myself. At 18, I took my first job as a construction worker, hauling concrete bags in the brutal Texas heat. The work was backbreaking, the pay was terrible, but I saved every single dollar I could. Those early years taught me the value of persistence. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes 16 when overtime was available. While other young men spent their weekends at bars or ball games, I studied blueprints and learned everything about foundations, framing, electrical work, plumbing. I took night classes at the community college, scraping together tuition money from odd jobs. My hands were always cut up, my back always aching, but I never complained. By the time I was 25, I had enough saved to buy my first work truck and some decent equipment. I started taking small contracts, building decks and doing home repairs. Word spread about my quality work and fair prices. One job led to another and another. I reinvested every profit back into the business, buying better tools, hiring my first employee, then a second. Meeting Martha changed everything. She was a waitress at the diner where I grabbed breakfast every morning before heading to job sites. She had this warm smile that could light up the darkest room, and she never judged me for showing up covered in sawdust and paint. We got married when I was 26, and she became my partner in every sense of the word. Martha kept the books, answered phones, scheduled jobs, all while working her own shifts at the diner. We lived in a tiny apartment above a hardware store for the first 5 years of our marriage. Every spare cent went into the business. Martha never complained, not once. She believed in me when I barely believed in myself. When I landed my first big contract, a small office building downtown, she cried tears of joy. That project put Thompson Construction on the map. Over the next 3 decades, I built the company brick by brick. We grew from 3 employees to over 200. Our projects expanded from small residential jobs to major commercial developments, shopping centers, apartment complexes, schools, office towers. I was proud of every single building that bore my company's name. By the time I turned 50, Thompson Construction was pulling in over $15 million annually. But success came with a price. The bigger we grew, the more time I spent in offices instead of on job sites. I missed the physical work, the satisfaction of seeing something take shape under my own hands. Still, I told myself it was worth it. I was building something that would outlast me, something I could pass down. Martha was my anchor through it all. For 32 years, she stood beside me through every struggle and triumph. We never had much in the way of fancy vacations or expensive hobbies. Our joy came from simple things: Sunday mornings with coffee on the porch, drives through the hill country, quiet evenings planning our future. She wanted to travel when we retired. See Europe, visit the national parks out west. I promised her we would do all of it. Then, 5 years ago, cancer took her from me. Pancreatic cancer, diagnosed too late. She was gone within 4 months. The day she died, part of me died too. The house felt empty without her laughter. The business felt meaningless without her there to share it with. I went through the motions, showed up at job sites, signed contracts, but my heart was not in it anymore. Martha's final words to me, whispered in that hospital room, were simple. Take care of Derek. Our son was everything to us, our only child. We had poured our love into raising him, giving him every advantage we never had. Private schools, college, at a prestigious business program, his own car, a nice apartment. I wanted him to have it easier than I did. Derek graduated with honors and seemed ready to take on the world. When he joined Thompson Construction 3 years ago as vice president, I was thrilled. Finally, I thought someone to share the burden with, someone I could trust completely. He was my blood, my legacy. I started planning to hand over the reins within a couple of years, let him run the company while I finally took that trip Martha and I never got to take. But looking back now, I see the signs I ignored. Derek started changing about a year into working with me. He became distant, always busy with meetings I was not invited to. He asked pointed questions about the company finances, about my personal accounts, about my will. At the time, I brushed it off as natural curiosity, a son wanting to understand the family business. He stopped calling just to chat. Our conversations became transactional, focused on contracts and numbers rather than life and family. When I suggested we grab dinner together, he always had an excuse. Too busy, too tired, important client meeting. I told myself he was just stressed adjusting to the responsibilities of management. I noticed he paid particular attention whenever I mentioned my estate planning. I had updated my will after Martha passed, leaving everything to Derek. The company valued at roughly $20 million. The house, my savings and investments. He was my only heir, my only family. It seemed natural, expected. But the way his eyes lit up when my lawyer Anderson mentioned the details should have warned me. Still, I pushed aside any doubts. This was my son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the young man who cried at his mother's funeral. I convinced myself I was being paranoid, that grief was making me see shadows where none existed. Derek loved me. He would never hurt me. I was so very wrong. That Monday morning in October, I woke up excited about the future. We had just landed a massive contract, a 20-story office building in Austin worth $30 million. It was the biggest project in company history. I scheduled a meeting with our subcontractors to go over preliminary plans. The meeting was set for 9 in the morning, which meant leaving my place outside San Antonio by 7 to beat the traffic. I remember the morning so clearly. Cool autumn air, the sky just starting to lighten. I made coffee, grabbed a breakfast taco from my favorite spot down the street, and climbed into my black Ford pickup. The truck was 10 years old, but ran like a dream. I had always preferred reliable over flashy. As I merged onto Interstate 35 heading north, I turned on the radio, some old country song about lost love and second chances. I thought about Martha, wondered what she would think about this new project. She would have been so proud. I made a mental note to visit her grave that weekend, tell her about it. My phone rang through the truck's Bluetooth. Derek's name flashed on the screen. I smiled, thinking maybe he was finally reaching out like the old days. "I'm on my way to Austin," I said. "Big meeting today." His voice sounded odd, strained. "I know, Dad. I just wanted to check in, make sure you're okay." "I'm fine, son. Why would not I be?" "Just worried about you driving alone. You've been working so hard lately." Something about his tone felt off, but I ignored it. "That is what fathers do, Derek. We work hard for our families." There was a pause. Then he asked, "What time do you think you will be back?" "Probably around 3 or 4. Why?" "No reason. Just want to make sure you are safe. Drive careful, okay?" "Always do." We hung up. I remember feeling a strange unease, but I shook it off. Derek was probably just concerned about me. That was a good thing, right? Maybe he was finally coming around, remembering that family mattered more than business. I cranked up the radio and focused on the road ahead. The highway stretched out before me, mostly empty at that early hour. 18-wheelers rumbled past in the slow lane. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning mist. I never saw the truck that hit me. One moment I was cruising along, thinking about foundation specs and construction timelines. The next moment, a massive delivery truck swerved into my lane. The driver must have fallen asleep or lost control. Everything happened in slow motion and lightning fast at the same time. I jerked the wheel hard to the right, trying to avoid the collision. My truck spun sideways. The delivery truck clipped my rear end, sending me careening toward the shoulder. I fought for control, but the laws of physics do not negotiate. My pickup hit the guardrail, flipped over it, and tumbled down the embankment. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. My body slammed against the seatbelt so hard I thought my ribs would crack. The truck rolled 3 times before slamming into a concrete drainage culvert. The impact knocked the air from my lungs. Pain exploded through my skull. I tasted blood. My vision blurred, darkened around the edges. I heard sirens in the distance growing closer, voices shouting, someone prying at the mangled door, hands touching my neck checking for a pulse. A woman's voice. "He is alive, but barely. Head trauma. We need to move fast." Then darkness swallowed me whole. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. Beeping machines, antiseptic smell, harsh fluorescent lights that hurt even through closed eyelids. I tried to move, but my body refused to obey. Tried to speak, but my throat would not work. Panic surged through me. Was I paralyzed? Dead. I could hear everything around me with perfect clarity, but I could not respond. Could not open my eyes, could not lift a finger, could not make a sound. It was like being buried alive inside my own body. Voices filtered through the confusion, a doctor speaking in measured tones. Severe traumatic brain injury. He is in a coma, what we call a minimally conscious state. Brain activity is present, but he cannot interact with his environment. Prognosis is uncertain. If he survives the next 72 hours, we will know more. Another voice familiar. Derek, my son. What are his chances, doctor? The doctor hesitated. Honestly, very low. The damage was extensive. Even if he does wake up, there will likely be permanent cognitive impairment. Quality of life would be severely compromised. I screamed inside my head. I'm here, I can hear you, but nothing came out. Derek spoke again, and something in his tone chilled me. So if he does not make it, what happens then? We would keep him on life support for a time, see if there is any improvement. But ultimately, the family would need to make difficult decisions about continuing treatment. I see. And how long before we would know for certain? Give it a week. If there is no change by then, the likelihood of recovery becomes almost non-existent. Thank you, doctor. I appreciate your honesty. The doctor left. I heard Derek's footsteps pacing the room. Then his phone rang. He is in ICU, Derek said quietly. Doctor says chances are slim, maybe 10% at best. Yeah, severe brain damage. Even if he wakes up, he would not be the same. No, I do not think so. This might be... I know, we just need to wait a few more days. Who is he talking to? And why did he sound so calm, so calculating? My son should have been devastated, panicked, desperate for me to recover. Instead, he sounded like he was discussing a business transaction. Over the next 2 days, I floated in and out of awareness. Nurses came and went, checking vital signs, adjusting IV drips. I tried desperately to move anything to show them I was conscious. My body remained a prison. Derek visited often, but never alone. He brought someone with him on the 3rd day, a man I did not recognize. This is George Miller, Derek said, introducing his companion. He is a lawyer. I asked him to help me understand the legal situation. My condolences. Miller said, though his voice held no real sympathy. Derek has explained the circumstances. Have the doctors provided an updated prognosis? Derek answered. They say he is brain dead in all the ways that matter, just a body on machines. That was a lie. I wanted to scream it. I was not brain dead. I was right here listening to every word. Miller continued. If he were declared deceased, the estate would transfer according to his will. You mentioned he left everything to you. Everything. The company, the house, his investments. It is all spelled out in the documents Anderson drew up last year. Anderson. My lawyer, a good man who had handled my affairs for 20 years. Derek had not contacted him yet, I was sure of it. The problem, Derek said, is Anderson will not release any information until Dad is officially gone. He is old school about that kind of thing. Miller's voice dropped lower. There are ways to expedite the process. If you can get a death certificate, the probate moves much faster. But he is not dead yet, not yet. But the doctors said themselves there is no real hope. We could wait for nature to take its course, or we could make arrangements. I felt ice in my veins. What kind of arrangements? A pause. Then Miller spoke carefully. I know a doctor here who understands difficult family situations. For a fee, he could provide the necessary documentation. As far as the world knows, Francis Thompson passed away from injuries sustained in the accident. No one would question it given the severity. Derek was quiet for a long moment. How much? 20,000, 10 for the doctor, 10 for my services. And then I would have access to the estate immediately, within a week of the funeral. I can expedite the probate. With the death certificate, Anderson would have no choice but to recognize you as the sole heir. My son, my only child, was planning to declare me dead while I still lived. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain. This was not about money or impatience. This was cold, calculated murder. What about the funeral? Derek asked. People will expect one. Make it dignified. Closed casket, obviously. Invite everyone from the company, his business associates. Play the grieving son. Once you have the estate settled, you can do whatever you want. All right, let me think about it. Do not think too long. The longer he lingers like this, the more complicated things become. They left. I lay there in the darkness of my unresponsive body tears. I could not cry, burning behind my useless eyes. The next day, Derek made his decision. I heard him on the phone outside my room. Yes, I want to move forward. Get the paperwork ready. I will transfer the money this afternoon. Schedule it for tomorrow night. Make it look natural, like he just slipped away. Right, I understand. Thank you. Tomorrow night. They were going to kill me tomorrow night, or rather declare me dead and let me waste away without care. Either way, I would be gone. But something strange happened that evening. As I lay there drowning in despair and rage, I felt a tiny spark of sensation in my right index finger. Just a flutter, barely noticeable. I focused every ounce of my consciousness on that finger, willing it to move. It twitched, just a fraction of an inch, but it moved. Hope surged through me. If I could move one finger, maybe I could move more. Maybe I could escape this prison. I had less than 24 hours to figure out how. All night I worked on that finger. By morning, I could curl it slightly. By afternoon, I could move my whole hand, though just barely. The effort exhausted me, but I could not stop. My life depended on it. A nurse came in to check on me. Carol, her name badge read. She had been kind during her shifts, talking to me, even though I could not respond, telling me about her day, her kids, her hopes that I would recover. As she adjusted my IV, I concentrated everything on my hand. Move, please, move. My fingers twitched against the bedsheet. Carol froze. She looked down at my hand, then at my face. Mr. Thompson, can you hear me? I could not speak, but I managed to move my fingers again. A deliberate motion this time. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, you are in there, are not you? I moved my hand again, stronger this time. She glanced toward the door, then leaned close. Your son is planning something terrible, is not he? I heard him talking to that lawyer. I managed the smallest nod, just a slight movement of my head. Carol took my hand. Listen to me. I'm going to help you. But you have to trust me. Can you do that? Another tiny nod. She pulled out her phone. I'm going to record their conversations, get proof, and I'm going to help you get stronger, but you cannot let anyone else know you are awake yet, especially not your son. Understand? I squeezed her hand as hard as I could manage. That night, Derek came with Miller and another man, the doctor who would sign my death certificate. Carol had hidden a recording device under my pillow. I lay perfectly still, forcing myself not to react. He looks the same, Derek said. When will it happen? The doctor checked some monitors. I will administer a sedative that will slow his vitals to almost nothing. In his condition, it will appear that he simply passed away. Very peaceful. I will sign the death certificate citing complications from the accident. No autopsy will be ordered, and you are certain no one will question it who he is barely alive as it is. This is a mercy, really. Miller added, I've already drafted the death announcement. We can release it to the press tomorrow morning. Funeral is scheduled for Sunday at St. Michael Church. That gives us 5 days to prepare. Derek nodded. Make it happen. They left. Carol retrieved the recording device, her hands shaking. This is evil, she whispered. Pure evil. She helped me sit up slightly that night, working my muscles, helping me regain control, bit by bit. The progress was agonizing slow, but I was improving. By the next evening, I could open my eyes for short periods. By the following morning, I could whisper a few words. That afternoon, Derek returned with a funeral director. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing shallow while they discussed arrangements. The service will be at 10 in the morning, the funeral director said. We will use the large chapel to accommodate the expected attendance. You mentioned a closed casket. Yes, Derek said firmly. The accident was too severe. I do not want people remembering him that way. Of course, very understandable. Now for the eulogy, would you like to speak? I will say a few words about what a great man my father was. The hypocrisy was staggering. After they left, Carol contacted my lawyer Anderson. She used my phone to send him a message. This is Francis. I am alive. Derek is lying. Come to the hospital tonight. Room 312. Tell no one. Anderson arrived after midnight. When he saw me sitting up, slightly able to speak in whispers, tears filled his eyes. Francis, what has that boy done? I told him everything. He listened, his face growing harder with each detail. Then he made a plan. Sunday morning, you are going to walk into that church, he said. I will have police standing by. We will expose him in front of everyone. I'm not strong enough to walk, I protested. Then I will carry you if I have to. But Derek is not getting away with this. Carol helped me over the next days, sneaking me out of bed when no one was watching, helping me take small steps, building my strength. It was painful, exhausting, but rage fueled me. Derek would not win. Saturday evening, Carol smuggled me out of the hospital in a wheelchair, dressed in orderly scrubs. Anderson picked us up in his car and took me to his house. His wife helped me shower, shave, dress in one of my old suits that Anderson had retrieved from my house. I looked at myself in the mirror, thinner, bruised, weak, but alive, and tomorrow I would prove it. Sunday morning arrived with crystal clear skies. Anderson helped me into his car. I could walk now slowly and with support, but I could walk. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I have never been more sure of anything." We arrived at St. Michael Church at 9:30, half an hour before the service. Anderson parked in a spot where we could see the entrance. People were already arriving dressed in black, faces somber. I recognized so many of them. Employees from Thompson Construction, business partners, competitors, friends I had not seen in years. They filed into the church believing they were there to mourn me. At 9:50, a black hearse pulled up. 6 pallbearers men from my company carried a casket into the church. My casket. I wondered what was inside. Weights to make it feel real, or was it simply empty? "It is time," Anderson said. "Not yet. I want to hear what he says." We waited until the service started. Through the church's open doors, I could hear the organ playing, a hymn Martha had loved. Then the minister began speaking about loss and legacy and the fragility of life. After a few minutes, I heard Derek's voice amplified through the sound system. "My father, Francis Thompson, was an extraordinary man. He built something from nothing, created jobs for hundreds of people, left his mark on this city in concrete and steel. He taught me about hard work, about integrity, about taking care of family." I almost laughed at the irony. He continued, "Dad was not perfect. He worked too much, worried too much, carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. After my mother died, I watched him struggle with loneliness and grief. But he never gave up. He kept building, kept pushing forward, because that is what he knew how to do." There was a pause. When Derek spoke again, his voice cracked with manufactured emotion. "The last time I spoke to my father was the morning of his accident. I told him to drive safely. I told him I loved him. I wish I had said more. I wish I had spent more time with him instead of always being too busy with work. But we never know when our time is up. Do we?" The church was silent, except for scattered sounds of crying. Derek went on. "My father left me everything. His company, his home, his life's work. But what I would give to have him back instead, money and property, cannot replace the man who taught me everything I know. I promise to honor his memory by continuing what he started." Thompson. "Construction will thrive because that is what he would have wanted." I could not listen to any more. I nodded to Anderson. He helped me out of the car. My legs shook but held. We walked slowly toward the church entrance. Each step sent pain shooting through my still healing body, but I didn't care. The doors stood open. Light poured out. I could see the backs of heads, hundreds of people facing forward toward the altar where my casket rested beneath a blanket of white roses. I walked through those doors. The first person to notice was a woman in the back row. She turned, probably wondering who was arriving late. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opened in shock. Then someone else turned, and another. A ripple of awareness moved through the congregation like a wave. People twisted in their seats. Whispers erupted. Someone gasped. I walked slowly down the center aisle, leaning on Anderson's arm. Every eye in the church was on me. Derek was still standing at the podium, his back to me. He was saying something about carrying on my legacy when the whispers finally penetrated his awareness. He turned. Our eyes met across the length of the church. His face went white as the roses on my casket. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I kept walking. One step, then another. The church had gone completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. I reached the front of the church and climbed the 3 steps to the altar. Each step was agony, but I didn't let it show. Derek stood frozen at the podium, staring at me like I was a ghost. I walked right up to him, looked him in the eyes. Then I turned to face the congregation. My voice was rough from disuse, but it carried through the silent church. "I am Francis Thompson, and as you can see, I am not dead." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then pandemonium erupted. People jumped to their feet. Voices overlapped in confusion and shock. Someone shouted, "How is this possible?" Another person screamed. I raised my hand and gradually the noise subsided. "I know this is quite a shock," I said. "Trust me, it has been a shocking week for me too." Derek found his voice. "Dad, you are alive. Thank God. We thought—" The doctor said. I turned to him. "The doctor said what, Derek? That I was brain dead, or that I was already gone?" His face flushed red. "I do not understand. Let me help you understand." I looked back at the congregation. 2 weeks ago, I was in a terrible accident. That part is true. I was in a coma, unable to move or speak, but I could hear everything. Every conversation, every plan. Derek grabbed my arm. "Dad, you are confused." "The head injury?" I shook him off. I'm not confused, son. I heard you talking to your lawyer friend George Miller. I heard you arrange for a fake death certificate. I heard you plan this funeral so you could take my company while I was still breathing. Gasps rose from the crowd. Derek's face went from red to pale. That is insane. I would never... Anderson stepped forward, holding up his phone. We have recordings. Every conversation, every plan. Carol, the ICU nurse, documented everything. Carol stood up from where she had been sitting in the back. She walked forward, her face determined. I heard them plotting, she said loudly. I heard them talk about killing Mr. Thompson for his money. Derek's lawyer, Miller, who had been sitting in the third row, stood up and started toward the exit. 2 police officers I had not noticed before blocked his path. Going somewhere, Mr. Miller, one officer asked. Derek pointed at me, his voice rising. This is ridiculous. My father is clearly suffering from delusions caused by brain trauma. He does not know what he is saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I stepped closer to him. You called me the morning of the accident, asked where I was going when I would be back. Were you hoping I would die in that accident, Derek? Or was that just lucky timing for your plan? No, Dad. Please, you have to understand. What do I have to understand? That my son, the boy I raised and loved and gave everything to, was willing to declare me dead for money. It was not about the money. Derek's control finally cracked. His voice broke. It was about proving I could run things without you. You never believed in me, never thought I was good enough. I stared at him. I was going to give you the company. In 2 years, it was all going to be yours anyway. But I didn't want it as a gift, I wanted to earn it, and you would not let me. Always hovering, always checking my work, never trusting me. So you decided to kill me instead. I did not try to kill you. The accident was not my fault. But you tried to finish what the accident started. You hired someone to sign a fake death certificate while I was lying helpless in that hospital bed. Anderson spoke up. I have the recording right here. Would you like to hear it? He pressed play on his phone. Derek's voice filled the church crystal clear. Get the paperwork ready. I will transfer the money this afternoon. Schedule it for tomorrow night. Make it look natural, like he just slipped away. The congregation erupted again. Someone shouted. He tried to murder his own father. Someone else yelled. Call the police. They are already here, Anderson said calmly, gesturing to the officers by the door. Derek fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was desperate. The company has been struggling and I made some bad investments and I thought if I could just... So this was about covering up your mistakes. I messed up, Dad. I messed up so bad. Please, I'm your son. I looked down at him, this man I had raised, and felt nothing but sadness. You were my son. But the Derek I knew would never have done this. The police officers stepped forward. Derek Thompson, one said you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted murder. As they handcuffed him, Derek looked up at me one last time. What are you going to do? I'm going to do what I should have done years ago. I'm going to let you face the consequences of your actions. They led him away. Miller was already being escorted out by other officers. The church buzzed with conversation people processing what they had just witnessed. I turned to the congregation. I apologized for the dramatic interruption of what was supposed to be my funeral. I looked at my casket draped in flowers. I have to say the turnout was better than I expected. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. I want to thank everyone who came today thinking they were paying respects. Your presence here means more than you know. I built Thompson Construction with the help of many of you, and knowing you cared enough to be here. That matters. An older man in the front row stood up. Francis, we all thought we had lost you. Seeing you here alive, it is a miracle. Not a miracle, I said. Just stubbornness and a very good nurse. Carol smiled from her spot near the altar. I continued. What happened this week taught me something important. I spent 30 years building a company, accumulating wealth, creating a legacy I could pass down. But I forgot to pass down the things that really matter. Values, integrity, compassion. I gave my son everything except the one thing he needed most, the understanding that who you are matters more than what you own. The church was quiet, people listening intently. So here is what I'm going to do. Thompson Construction will not go to Derek. Instead, I'm turning it into an employee-owned company. Those of you who have worked with me, built with me, bled and sweated alongside me, you are the ones who deserve to benefit from what we created together. Murmurs of surprise and approval spread through the congregation. As for my personal assets, I'm establishing the Martha Thompson Memorial Fund. My wife dreamed of helping young people who came from nothing like I did get a chance to build something. That fund will provide scholarships and training programs for kids who want to learn construction trades. I looked at the casket, and since we are all here and dressed for a funeral anyway, how about we make this a celebration instead, a celebration of second chances and new beginnings? Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger. Anderson stepped beside me. You sure about this, Francis? I've never been more sure of anything. Over the next hour, the funeral transformed into something else entirely. People shared stories about working with me over the years. We laughed, cried, and celebrated life instead of mourning death. Someone suggested we move the reception to the church hall, and within minutes it was happening. I shook hands with what felt like hundreds of people. Former employees thanked me for the opportunity. Business partners congratulated me on my survival. Strangers who had just come to pay respects told me my story inspired them. Through it all, I kept thinking about Derek, my son, the boy I had failed somewhere along the way. I had given him things instead of time, money instead of meaning. I had taught him how to build buildings, but not how to build character. That was on me as much as it was on him. The weeks that followed were difficult. Derek was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted insurance fraud. The fake death certificate plan implicated the doctor Miller had bribed, who also faced charges. Miller himself lost his law license and received a 3-year sentence. Derek's trial was mercifully quick. With the recordings and Carol's testimony, there was little room for defense. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 3 years in prison with possibility of parole after 18 months. I attended the sentencing. Derek looked smaller, somehow diminished. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement, I stood. Your Honor. I said my son made terrible choices. He hurt me deeply, but I also failed him as a father. I taught him to value success over integrity, so while I believe he needs to face consequences, I also hope he gets help. Real help, not just punishment. The judge nodded. Noted, Mr. Thompson. As Derek was led away, he looked back at me. I could not read his expression. Regret, resentment. Maybe both. I spent 2 months recovering fully from my injuries. Physical therapy helped me regain my strength. The headaches and dizziness faded. My body healed faster than my heart. Carol checked on me regularly even after I was discharged. We became friends, real friends. She told me her own story of raising 3 kids alone after her husband left, working double shifts to make ends meet. Her strength humbled me. Anderson helped me restructure Thompson Construction into an employee-owned cooperative. The transition took months, but watching my workers become stakeholders in their own futures brought me more joy than any profit ever had. I sold the big house where Martha and I had lived. Too many rooms, too many memories. I bought a small cottage on Canyon Lake about an hour outside San Antonio. It had a porch overlooking the water and just enough space for one person and his thoughts. The Martha Thompson Memorial Fund became my new purpose. We partnered with trade schools and community colleges to identify young people with potential but no resources. The first year, we provided 20 full scholarships. Watching those kids learn, grow, and eventually build their first projects brought tears to my eyes. One of them, a young woman named Jessica from a rough neighborhood in Houston, reminded me of myself at that age, hungry for opportunity, willing to work harder than anyone else, just needing a chance. When she completed her first solo project, a beautiful deck for a disabled veteran, she thanked me with such genuine emotion that I had to walk away before I broke down completely. This, I realized, was the legacy that mattered, not buildings or bank accounts. People, lives changed, opportunities created. I started volunteering at a youth center in San Antonio, teaching basic carpentry skills to teenagers every Saturday morning. Some were troubled kids, others just bored and looking for something constructive to do. I taught them how to measure, cut, join, sand finish, but more than that, I tried to teach them what my father never taught me, and what I failed to teach Derek, that your character is built the same way you build a house, one choice at a time, one principle laid on top of another, and if the foundation is rotten, eventually everything collapses. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from Derek. He had been transferred to a minimum security facility and was participating in therapy and education programs. The letter was short. Dad, it began. I do not expect forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm trying to understand why I became the person who could do that to you. The therapist here says, I tied my entire self-worth to external success, to proving I was good enough. When I felt I was failing, I panicked. That is no excuse, but it is an explanation. I am learning carpentry in the prison workshop. Funny, right? After all those years working in an office at your company, I'm finally working with my hands like you started out doing. I'm not very good yet, but I'm getting better. There is something satisfying about creating something real. I do not know if you will ever want to see me again. I would understand if you do not, but I want you to know that I think about you every day. I remember the good times before I lost my way. I remember you teaching me to fish, to throw a baseball, to drive. I remember Mom's laugh and how happy you two were. I threw all of that away for money I did not even need. I cannot take it back. All I can do is try to become someone who would never make those choices again. I hope you are well. I hope you found peace. Your son, Derek. I read that letter a dozen times. Each time I felt the same complicated mix of anger, sadness, and something that might have been the beginning of understanding. I didn't write back right away. I needed time to process, to figure out what I felt and what I wanted to say. 3 months later, I drove to the prison. It was a long drive through empty Texas landscape, giving me plenty of time to think. I still was not sure what I would say when I saw him. The visiting room was institutional and cold, metal tables bolted to the floor, plastic chairs, vending machines humming in the corner. Derek walked in wearing prison blues. He had lost weight, looked older. When he saw me, he stopped. We stared at each other across the room. Then I gestured to the chair across from me. He sat down slowly, eyes never leaving my face. "Thank you for coming. I have been thinking about your letter," I said. He waited. "You are right. I never taught you that who you are matters more than what you achieve. I was so focused on building the company that I forgot to build character in my son. That failure is mine. Dad, no. You gave me everything. I gave you things, Derek. I did not give you enough time, enough attention, enough real guidance. Your mother would have done better if she had lived." His eyes filled with tears. "I miss her so much. Me too." We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, "I'm not ready to forgive you. I do not know if I ever will be. What you did broke something between us that might not be fixable." He nodded, tears falling now. "I understand. But I want you to know something. You are still my son. That has not changed, and I do not want to lose you completely. What does that mean? It means I will visit sometimes. Not often, maybe, but sometimes. And when you get out, if you want to try to build some kind of relationship, I'm willing to try. Not father and son the way we were, but maybe something new, something more honest. I would like that," he whispered. "But Derek, if you ever lie to me again, ever try to manipulate or deceive me, we are done, completely. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." We talked for another hour. Not about the past or what happened, about small things, the carpentry work he was doing, the lake cottage I bought, books we had read. It was awkward and uncomfortable, but it was something. When visiting hours ended, I stood to leave. Derek stood too. "Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me completely. I have not decided if I'm giving up or not," I said honestly. "But I'm here today. That is all I can promise." I drove home as the sun set over the hill country, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Martha would have loved this view. I talked to her sometimes out loud in the car, told her about my day, about the decisions I was making about Derek. "I think I did the right thing," I said to the empty passenger seat, visiting him, "but I honestly do not know. What would you do?" The sunset offered no answers, but somehow I felt a little lighter. Life settled into a new rhythm. I woke each morning in my cottage, made coffee on the porch, watched the lake come alive with the sunrise. I worked with the scholarship fund, taught my Saturday carpentry classes, took long walks, read books I had never had time for. Sometimes loneliness crept in. The cottage was quiet, especially at night. I thought about Martha, about the life we had planned that never happened. But I also found moments of deep peace, sitting by the water, watching osprey hunt fish. I visited Derek every few months. Our conversations gradually became easier, though trust was slow to rebuild. He was released after serving 18 months. I helped him find a small apartment and a job at a cabinet-making shop. We had dinner once a month, carefully neutral territory. One evening, almost 2 years after the funeral that was not a funeral, Derek brought something to our monthly dinner. A small wooden box, beautifully crafted with dovetail joints and a smooth finish. "I made this," he said, setting it on the table between us. "For you." I picked it up, examined the craftsmanship. It was excellent work, better than I would have expected. "This is beautiful. Open it." Inside was a photograph. Derek and me from years ago, maybe when he was 10 or 11. We were on a construction site, both wearing hard hats, both grinning at the camera. Martha must have taken it. "I found it in some old boxes," Derek said. I wanted you to have it, to remember that we had good times once, before I messed everything up. I looked at that photo, at my young son's happy face, at my own pride in showing him my work. When did it all go wrong? Was it gradual or sudden? Did I miss warning signs? Or were there none to miss? Thank you, I said finally. I will keep this. We finished dinner mostly in silence, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of two people who had hurt each other, learning to exist in the same space without damage. As I drove home that night, box on the passenger seat, I realized something. I was not angry anymore. The rage that had sustained me through the trial and early recovery had burned itself out, leaving behind something quieter. Not forgiveness exactly. Maybe acceptance. Recognition that the past could not be changed, only learned from. I placed the wooden box on my bedside table. Some nights I opened it and looked at that photo. Other nights I left it closed. Both were okay. 3 years after the accident, on a warm spring morning, I stood in front of 20 graduating students from the Martha Thompson Memorial Fund program. They wore caps and gowns, proud families, filling the auditorium. These young people had completed their training and were ready to start their careers in construction. I had been asked to give a short speech. I kept it simple. You all know my story, I said. You know about success and betrayal and second chances. But here is what I really want you to understand. You are standing here today, not because of me, but because of a woman named Martha who believed people deserved opportunities. She believed that where you come from does not determine where you can go. I paused, looking at their young faces, full of hope and determination. Each of you came from difficult circumstances. Some of you grew up poor, some faced discrimination, some struggled with family problems or personal demons. But you did not let those things define you. You chose to build something better. That is what construction really is, you know. Not just putting up buildings. It is about building a life, building character, building a future. Every choice you make is like laying a brick. Lay them carefully, lay them with integrity, because eventually those bricks become the structure of who you are. After the ceremony, a young man approached me. His name was Marcus, one of the first scholarship recipients. He had grown up in foster care, bounced between homes, never had stability. Now he had a job lined up with a major construction firm. Mr. Thompson, he said, I just want to thank you, not just for the scholarship, for showing me that mistakes do not have to be the end of the story. I shook his hand. You did the work, Marcus. All I did was open a door. You walked through it. Still, you gave me a chance when nobody else would. That matters. After everyone left, I sat alone in the empty auditorium for a while. I thought about Martha, about how she would have loved seeing these kids succeed. I thought about Derek working at his cabinet shop, slowly rebuilding his life. I thought about the journey from that hospital bed to this moment. Someone once told me that the measure of a life is not what you accumulate, but what you give away. I spent most of my life accumulating. The company, the money, the reputation. And in the end, my son tried to take it all by declaring me dead. But now, watching young people build futures, thanks to the fund Martha inspired, teaching teenagers to create with their hands, living simply in my cottage by the lake, I felt richer than I ever had when I owned a $20 million company. The irony was not lost on me. I had to lose everything to understand what actually mattered. So here I am, approaching my 62nd birthday, sitting on my porch, watching the sunset over Canyon Lake. The water reflects the fading light like liquid gold. A great blue heron hunts in the shallows. Somewhere in the distance, a boat motor hums. My body still aches sometimes from the accident. Headaches visit occasionally. But I am alive, truly alive, in ways I was not before. Every breath feels like a gift. Every sunset a masterpiece. Every conversation with another human being an opportunity for connection. Derek and I talk more now than we did in those years before the accident. Our relationship will never be what it was when he was a child, innocent and full of trust in his father. But we are building something new, something more honest, even if it is also more fragile. Last month he asked if he could volunteer with me at the youth center. I was not sure at first, but I said yes. Watching him teach a troubled 15-year-old how to properly use a saw, I saw glimpses of the man he might become. Patient, careful, genuinely interested in helping someone else. Maybe that is the real inheritance I can leave him. Not money or property, but the understanding that redemption is possible. That the person you were does not have to be the person you become. Carol still calls me every week to check in. She tells me about her kids, her grandkids, her life. I tell her about the scholarship students, the carpentry classes, the small joys of simple living. We laugh together. She has become family in a way that has nothing to do with blood. Anderson retired last year, but we still meet for coffee every Tuesday morning. We talk about everything except legal matters. He tells me about his travel plans, his wife's garden, his grandchildren's accomplishments. I listen and share my own small stories. It is enough. The company thrives without me. The employee owners take pride in their work in ways they never did when it was just a job. Profits get shared. Decisions get made democratically. I check in occasionally, but mostly I stay away. It is theirs now. That is how it should be. Sometimes I go back to St. Michael Church where my funeral happened. I sit in the back pew and think about that morning. The shock on Derek's face, the silence before the chaos, the moment I spoke and reclaimed my life. If someone had told me 5 years ago that I would lose my son, my company, my wealth, and my health, and somehow end up happier, I would have thought they were insane. But here I am, lighter, freer, more at peace than I have been since Martha died. I learned something important through all of this. Betrayal changes you. It can make you bitter and closed off, or it can crack you open and let the light in. I chose the light, not because I am particularly strong or noble, but because the alternative was drowning in darkness. The people who hurt us the most are often the people we love the most. That is the cruel math of human relationships. Derek's betrayal cut so deep because I loved him so completely. But that same love, transformed and tempered by reality, gave me the strength to try again, to visit him in prison, to slowly, carefully rebuild some kind of connection. I do not know if that makes me wise or foolish, maybe both. What I do know is this: I walked into my own funeral and came out the other side different, not better or worse, just different, more aware of my own failures, more forgiving of human weakness, more grateful for second chances. The sun has fully set now. Stars are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. I can hear crickets starting their evening song. Inside, a simple dinner waits, a book I am halfway through, a bed that holds only me but does not feel empty anymore. Tomorrow, I will wake up and do it all again, teach kids to build, help scholarship students, maybe call Derek and see if he wants to grab lunch, live this small, quiet, beautiful life that rose from the ashes of the one I thought I wanted. And you know what? That is enough, more than enough. If you made it this far in my story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? Did you find a way to move forward? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need to hear that second chances are real, that healing is possible, that the end of one story can be the beginning of another. Thank you for listening to an old man ramble about his life. I hope you find your own peace, whatever that looks like for you. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, as long as you are breathing, you get another chance to build something beautiful. Take care of yourselves out there.